All right, guys, let's want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here will be giving our preview and prediction for a top 10 matchup between LSU and Florida State down in Orlando to get our college football season kicked off on Sunday. 56.5 over under 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on ABC, while the Tigers are 2.5-point favorites going on the road here. Basically, even though it is going to be a neutral site at the Camping World Stadium. Look at this LSU offense. This is a unit last year under Mike Denbrock who, had pretty admirable balance all year long. You look at the numbers on the top of the screen, and this is a pretty good unit for LSU. Jaden Daniels, he's looking to elevate his game once more after a highly efficient 2022 season. And I figured he'd have a good year for LSU because Denbrock, he worked with a very similar quarterback as Cincinnati and Desmond Ridder. And Daniels, this is a guy who made a lot of waves with his legs, and it's not like he was forcing it either. This is a guy who was very decisive as a runner, would wait to bail the pocket. I thought he was a patient runner, completed 68%, just shy of 3,000 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 picks, another 11 scores on the ground, 885 rushing. Garrett Nussmeier, of course, he came in the second half against Georgia and absolutely lit it up. But Jaden Daniels is going to be the guy who has the keys here for this offense. Him and Jordan Travis are very similar quarterbacks. Which ones do you think has the edge here? Two veterans have been around a long time, looking to get their campaign started on the right foot in a game that has plenty of playoff implications.
It's a very exciting game, the best game of the weekend. Last year's game between these two teams in New Orleans was an extremely exciting game. Came down to the wire, if you remember. Florida State was leading the game. They went down to the goal line, fumbled it. LSU got the ball back. They went all the way down the field. They scored and missed the extra point, or it was blocked. The extra point was blocked/missed, and Florida State won the game. An absolute thriller to kick off the season on Sunday night. And now they get the chance for part two. Can live with expectations. I certainly think it can with these offenses. Jaden Daniels is an incredible signal caller. Had a really good year at LSU last year. Stepped into the offense and looked perfect. I think he can elevate his game. I picked him to be the offensive player of the year in the SEC. I think he's just got so much talent and a great wide receiving room that can certainly be around him that we're going to get to in a second. Daniels, highly efficient, very talented passer, and I think I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, LSU also has an incredibly deep backfield. I think they got 5 or 6 guys that can really get on the field and make an impact. Logan Diggs coming up from Notre Dame has some nice versatility to him. Josh Williams, hard-nosed runner. Noah Kane, another impressive player. Armani Goodwin. And then John Emery's back with the program as well. So they have plenty of guys they look to get involved here in the running game. It's certainly be a by-committee approach, I think, alongside Daniel, who was the leading rusher for this team last year. Williams did have 536 and 6 scores. And then Noah Kane, he had 10 touchdowns. He got a lot of goal line work for them. So they have plenty of different guys that can get involved here in the ground game. Biggest problem is efficiency. Last year, in terms of really effectiveness, they really struggled against tougher opponents. Only 55 yards on the ground against Tennessee, 47 against Georgia, had less than 200 against Arkansas and over 50 touches. That's not great efficiency. Even in this game a season ago, they were held to under 150 yards. So this ground game, Nick, certainly has room to, explode. But at times they found themselves imploding, and those tougher games that they ended up losing. And if they can't find some sort of balance here, other than Jaden Daniels scampering for first downs, they could really struggle because that's not really a sustainable approach here on offense against this defense.
There is some nice talent in this running back room. They need to find consistency. Noah Kane's a good leading back here. Should probably be the leading back. Josh Williams, talented. Logan Diggs could be involved as leading back. John Emery Jr. is another talented back. Amari Goodwin has some potential as well. 5 deep here, a lot of talent. Running back by committee room. They need to step up, though, and produce. They've struggled against the bigger teams. They got, absolutely shell-shocked in some of those games. There's an opportunity to step up here. They were 40th in the nation on the ground last year. They certainly need to improve that. They want to be a high-flying offense to compete with some of these other programs.
The biggest story from this game last year, other than all the chaos, was Kayshon Boutte, who didn't really get involved that much. They didn't really seem to utilize him all that well. So we'll see if that's the same case with Malik Neighbors. Good straight line speed and quickness, great body control, can really adjust and track the ball well. Dangerous playmaker. They can't follow the same script they did last year, where their top player on offense wasn't getting the ball. Neighbors, you got to feed at least 5+ touches, I'd say, to feel comfortable with your passing offense. Mason Taylor at tight end, he ended up being a crucial part as a true freshman in this game a season ago. Great athlete for the position. He has great hands and toughness to win contested catches. Absolutely love Taylor at tight end. He's going to get a lot of love, I think, this year. Who else will step up alongside him? Aaron Anderson, the next 5-star from Bama. He missed this spring. We'll see what his availability is like. Chris Hilton's an explosive athlete. Kyron Lacey, also pretty good adjusting to the ball. Former Louisiana Lafayette transfer. Brian Thomas has a good, repertoire of his movements and hands. This is a nice receiving core. Somebody else alongside Neighbors has to step up, though, Nick. What do you think is going to be the game plan in this game? Are they going to look to churn it out on the ground, or do you really want to see a lot of versatility from this passing game?
I certainly think they need to attack the ground in this game to be successful. I think Mason Taylor is a very good tight end to return. Kieran Lacey at the wide receiver X is a solid player. Brian Thomas at the Z is a good player. Neighbors, obviously, we know we're going to get at him. He's a top 10 talent at wide receiver. Chris Hilton's a very talented player. Kyle Parker, a true freshman, could be involved. Aaron Anderson comes over from Alabama. Jalen Brown, another true freshman, could be involved. This is a good unit on paper. I just want to say these guys can step up and be involved. I don't really know who's going to have the biggest impact early on.
This offensive line last year, heading into the season, it was one of the most reconstructed units in CFB. They had, 2 freshman tackles, and in the middle they had some transfers, some veterans as well. It was just the most miscombobulated unit, I think, in all of college football. And they struggled, ranked 124th in FBS with 45 sacks allowed. And that includes Daniels at quarterback, who was a big mover for them, who was not really exactly taking sacks. I thought he had plenty of awareness. But I'm not worried about this unit one bit. Maybe for this game, Charles Turner's penciled in at center. He gave about 16 pressures last year. They like how Garrett Dellinger can play anywhere on this offensive line. Emory Jones, he was a true freshman at right tackle, 10th most pressures allowed in CFB. He was awful, but the guy on the other side was phenomenal. And Will Campbell, this was a guy who was phenomenal as a pass blocker, as a true freshman, showcasing great hands, really understanding some leverage. Number 1 ranked interior offensive lineman DJ Chester joins the fold. Probably not going to get in the go on this game, but in terms of just the offensive line having some continuity, I think they're pretty happy with what they have. Miles Frazier last year transferred in. He was solid. I think he'll be much better at potentially left guard. Mason Lunsford, a 6'7" player, was good for Maryland. So I think they're much happier with this offensive line this year. If they have to, plug and play a few guys in this game, I think they're confident they can do so going against an elite defensive line. But they can't continue to allow this many sacks, though, Nick. You want to keep Jane Daniels upright. He was banged up late in the year, and that's why Nussmeier got to go against Georgia, which ended up being beneficial. But again, this is not sustainable things you want to see with your offense.
I agree. They want to have this offensive line be in a better spot. Miles Frazier is a good player to have. Will Campbell is a player that's coming in back as a sophomore. He played as a true freshman last year. Looked good at times. Some interesting issues, though, as well. Charles Turner on the interior at center, a good player. Garrett Dillinger has to be better at right guard. Emory Jones has to be better at right tackle. Another true freshman last year coming back as a sophomore. They're going to get experience. These guys have played a full year and then they come back. So there is some experience here. I do worry about this offensive line. Will Campbell, though, is an incredibly talented player.
Last year LSU had 139 yards rushing. You look at the Florida State offense, they only had 132 and almost the exact same amount of touches. So neither ground game really got going. But for the rest of the season, Florida State, they were really good at running the football, 14th nationally, a lot of versatility here. Jordan Travis is going to be a big part in that. He's an elite improviser. Caleb Williams out west gets all the love for that. But here on the East Coast, Travis does that just as well. He has great pocket awareness, a true dual threat player. He's got good speed, good decision maker all of 2022. Some pretty inconsistent accuracy in mechanics, though, but I think after another year under his belt, we're really going to see him blossom this season. Trey Benson, the guy who's going to be the bell cow here, a physical runner, upright player, runs with his pads high, great ball security, really thrives on yards after contact. In the offensive line, I kind of want to skip to them because this is a unit much like LSU kind of struggled last year, especially in pass blocking. Casey Roderick, they picked up from Colorado, though, only gave up 1 sack. Kendra Jones, 6'4", 340, was inconsistent, but he was a good pass blocker at times. Maurice Smith, he was better for them down the stretch at center. Darius Washington may be playing the guard position. Dimitri Emmanuel had 800-plus snaps last year. Robert Scott's a guy that comes back. And then Jeremiah Byers, this is a guy that was phenomenal for UTEP, who did very well in pass blocking last year. He was also a strong run blocker as well, nice hard worker. This is an offensive line I think I'm certainly a little bit more higher on. Bless Harris returns as well to be at one of the left tackle spots. I'm very hopeful for these tackles in this game, Nick, but they want to run the ball more than LSU wants to. 132 yards a season ago. They want to see that be a big improvement, especially considering the momentum they had off last year's ground attack.
They certainly want to make a way to use this running game that is fantastic. Trey Benson is a really good back. Rodney Hill is a good player as well. They return this talent. This offensive line needs to step up. Casey Roderick at left guard. I'm excited to see what he can do. Jeremiah Byers at right tackle, a very good player to add in. Maurice Smith, DeMarty Amaral, Bless Harris. All players have to step up. Robert Scott Jr., Jalen Early could all be involved as well. Jordan Travis is an incredible quarterback. A lot of people pick him to win the Heisman. He's involved in that conversation. He's a very well-rounded quarterback, great on the ground, great through the air, very strong arm, good decision-making. He has a pretty good wide receiving unit to work with as well, and a nice tight end. They added Jaheim Bell. I'm excited to see what Travis can do. He needs to take that step forward and hit that next level. I would like to see more balance in the running game as well. I think Benson is a good power back, and they can certainly find balance with him. Very talented back.
They had 200-plus rushing yards as a team in 7 of the final 8 games, and the one they didn't have was the bowl game against Oklahoma, where they had almost 5 yards per carry. So they did that against good defenses too. Clemson, North Carolina State, they had 206 in those 2 games. They certainly don't have as many touches as you would like to. In those games, 34, 28, another 34 against Oklahoma. So they want to pound the rock here. If they can be in that 40-plus carries mark, I think they're definitely going to win the game because the efficiency is just so strong for them. Nice, strong vertical running game, though, for the Seminoles. It's an embarrassment of riches at pass catching. Obviously, this entire team is really built off transfers. Johnny Wilson last year uses every bit of his frame on contested catches, a 6'3", 235, great high point. He can win vertically with some nice speed. Winston Wright missed all of last year. Former West Virginia transfer is a pure slot weapon, mainly used underneath, who's shifty, kind of a forgotten player here in this rotation. Hakeem Williams, a true freshman 5-star, freak, coordinated athlete, going to probably find his way onto the field. Jaheim Bell, a versatile weapon at tight end. Wasn't used as much as a pass catcher last year for South Carolina. Explosive skill set, though. Very interested to see what the Noles do with him. Kyle Morlock, a more traditional tight end they also picked up. And then Keon Coleman, an athletic player from Michigan State, who was productive late in the cycle. This is an elite supporting cast here for Florida State, much better than it was a season ago coming into this game. I think Jordan Travis's got plenty of options to work with here. I think third downs for the Tigers are going to be something to monitor because Florida State has a lot of ways they can hit you, Nick. They can run vertically, they can run downhill, and they got these guys who can make athletic passing. They can make athletic grabs. I'm a little concerned if I'm LSU in this defense. What's your thoughts?
This is a great unit. I love this wide receiving unit a lot. Johnny Wilson's a fantastic wide receiver return. Keon Coleman, a good add. Destin Hill, a 5-star true freshman. Or not a 5-star, but a true freshman who's very talented coming in at the wide receiver Z. Winston Wright, a very good player in the slot. Jacal Douglas as well, another player in the slot. Katron Pierre as well at the wide receiver X. Very talented Jaheim Bell coming over from South Carolina. Such a talented tight end, a good physical tight end. They also have some other depth in Kyle Morlock, who came over as well from the transfer portal. Great offensive unit here. I love this offense a lot. I expect them to score a lot of points this year. I think this is a very good unit with Jordan Travis at the helm. This Florida State offense is going to be great to watch. They scored 36.1 points per game last year. They could easily hit that number again this year.
Looking at the LSU defense, I think they have one of the nation's top defensive lines. I think I pegged it as the number one unit coming into college football this year. They don't have guys like Ali Gayer, BJ Ojolari coming off the edge. But in terms of just pure studs on the defensive line, they check the boxes. Makai Wingo, elite nose tackle for them. Mason Smith, he was expected to have a big breakout year last season, ended up getting injured in this game on a celebration. He's back, though. I think they have a formidable duo there on the interior, one of the nation's best. They also picked up another 300-plus pounder, Jordan Jefferson, who was productive for West Virginia last year. Savion Jones, a veteran from last season that certainly made some waves. Ovi Ogahufu from Texas. Braden Swinson from Oregon. So they're certainly beefing up their pass rush a little bit. Parrish Shand as well. And Jacoby Gilroy, this is a guy that might be buried on the 3 deep, but he's a phenomenal defensive tackle as well. They're incredibly deep here on this side of the ball. They're going to want to look to attack Florida State interior. It certainly has a bit of question marks with some of their veterans that certainly haven't performed up to par, at least at times last year, Nick. I think this is a big edge that LSU wants to look to take advantage of. What are your thoughts on the D-line?
This is a D-line that's very talented, one of the nation's best, a great unit. Savion Jones is fantastic. Makai Winglow, great player at nose tackle. Mason Smith is a very good player. Avi Okufo as well, coming off at the edge, is a very good player. Jalen Lee was a nice add. Jordan Jefferson, another good add. Parrish Shand as well is another good add. Quincy Wiggins as well, potentially deeper down the depth chart, could be involved. Savion Jones, such a very powerful player off the edge. Makai Wingo, a great physical player, good run blocking player in the middle. Very good defensive line here that caps off a very good front seven. We'll get to the rest of the linebacking core.
Yeah, the linebacking core is very sound. They have plenty of depth here as well. Here, Omar Spates coming over from Oregon State. This is a veteran who's been a great producer for the Beavers. And then obviously Harold Perkins. This is a guy who was absolutely berserk over the back half of last season. 14 TFL for him. Most of that came over the final 7 games of the year. He was really racking it up. 7 sacks came across the final 7 games of the year. This guy has elite speed. He really tracks sideline to sideline well with intensity. I think his role is going to be very clear in this game. Obviously, people compare him to Micah Parsons, but I think he's going to be spying Jordan Travis all night. He can really be a patroller for them. You've seen that in the Arkansas's game. Malik Hornsby, when he got the go, they didn't fear him one bit as a passer, so maybe that's why it was a little bit easier for him, but he was able to patrol and make life hell for him all game long, forced a couple of fumbles in that game. Perkins, this is going to be a great matchup for them. They want to look to neutralize him, Nick. How do you think Florida State can do that?
This is a great 1-2 punch at linebacker. Omar Spates comes over from Oregon State. Just an incredible player. Harold Perkins, we both picked him to be Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think you can neutralize him. I think he has just so much talent to get after the quarterback and get after in the backfield. The offensive line is going to struggle. I like to see him move on from the left side. I think he's going to attack from the left side, throw Omar Spates potentially at the right side, and kind of make that work like that. And it's a good balance. Perkins plays in the middle. They also have some good depth as well. I don't think they're going to need it a whole lot here, but Wes Weeks and Greg Penn Jr. are all good players that can be involved, that are nice, solid depth. This is a very good core 4 here with the 2 standouts and 2 guys in the back end that would be good starters at other SEC programs, in my opinion, especially Wes Weeks, who's a very good player. I like this unit a lot. This is a very good, hard-hitting linebacking unit.
Yeah, I think they're certainly going to look to disguise coverages and blitzes a little bit. The packages with Perkins, I think, will be very fun to watch because they're certainly going to send him as a pass rusher often, but you're not going to know when it's coming. But he can certainly win as just a pure pass rusher as well. Elite athlete there in Harold Perkins. How is LSU going to account for the versatility of this FSU pass catching group we just alluded to a minute ago? A bunch of different pieces from all over the country. LSU, though, I think they have a pretty sound secondary, but some people are concerned about this cornerback group. Zai Alexander, a transfer from Southeast Louisiana, Denver Harris, those two are probably going to be slotted in somewhere. J.K. Johnson, a former four-star from Ohio State. And after that, you have a bunch of freshmen at these corner spots. Deuce Chestnut, I think, is going to be great at the nickel position. Greg Brooks, that is at safety. This is a phenomenal player for them, high-end football IQ. He's probably going to be one of the best players on this defense this year. He's also a great blitzer off the edge. His versatility is going to be, utilized heavily in this game, especially his range as a zone defender. I like this LSU secondary. Major Burns also has a lot of untapped potential still at his safety position, but the cornerback spot's certainly a little concerning in this game, Nick, going against some elite players, including Johnny Wilson, who, again, 6'7", 235.
Very good unit that has some nice potential here to step up. They are going to face a tough challenge. I do think that this Florida State team is going to beat them through the air because the secondary. Major Burns, good player. Greg Brooks Jr., I like him a lot. Deuce Chestnut coming over as a solid add. Javion Tavoni as well as a true freshman stepping in. Zay Alexander at left cornerback, a good player. I don't like how they're having two new cornerbacks step in. I hate when the teams don't have continuity like that. This is a good unit, but I think they're going to be outclassed here against a very talented wide receiving core from Florida State.
I certainly think how they defend the run is going to be very important. I think there's going to be a lot of guys creeping up in the box, looking to slow these guys down. And if they can do that, it's going to be a much easier game for the Tigers. So even though the cornerback group's a little iffy, they do have players in the back end that can certainly step up and make plays as run stoppers. Look at the Florida State defense. It's kind of the same matchup for them. They have a defensive line looking to beat up on an offensive line that certainly has a bit of its issues. I think Jared Verse is completely licking his chops. Emory Jones, again, 10th nationally, most pressures allowed, rising sophomore, going against the nation's top pass rusher, probably could have been a top 10 pick a couple of months ago in the NFL. Verse is just phenomenal. I have him winning the conference player in the ACC, completely racked up elite numbers. He got to go in this game last year, made an immediate impact. He was all over the place for them. This is a great defensive line as well for Florida State, though, Nick. They have plenty of guys that can attack you in a multitude of ways. Darnell Jackson, the 300-pounder, he's going to be a good run stopper on the interior. Braden Fiske, he was a great interior run stopper and pass rusher for Western Michigan. Fabian Lovett, a guy that was a little banged up last year, but he was good. Patrick Payton, a rising redshirt sophomore, certainly showcased some flashes of being an elite pass rusher for them. Gilbert Edmond as well as a productive player for South Carolina. There's just a lot of names to read off of these defensive lines, Nick. That's how deep they are, that's how talented they are, and that's how good they are. Biggest concern with Florida State, though, is they gave up 250-plus rushing yards 3 different times last year. They were 3-0 in those games, but you can't continue to do that and try to win. If you do that against LSU, you're probably going to find yourself down in the dumps trying to play from behind. So that's the only knock here on this run defense is they have to be better against, better competition. And they were really good against LSU last year against the run, but I'm certainly concerned when you see a team like Florida just run all over you because I think LSU could certainly have that capability. They don't have the same offensive lines as the Gators, but in terms of versatility and trying to defend, certainly is going to be evident.
It certainly is something you need to keep an eye on. Is can they stop this LSU running back room that is very talented? I do love this defensive line. Jared Verse, one of the best players in college football off the edge. Could have been a top 10 pick. He comes back. We both picked him to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He should easily be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Such a talented player. We knew he was going to be good coming over from Albany last year. Didn't expect him to be as good as he was. Florida State's been pumping out some nice talent on the edge. Jermaine Johnson was a player that just came out last year. Was his rookie year. Very talented player off the edge. They seem to be able to produce them down there. Mike Norvell. Patrick Payton's another good player off the edge. Fabian Lovett's a good run stopper in the middle. Braden Frisky's coming over as well, very talented. Brian Turner, Dennis Briggs. This is a very deep unit that has so many talented pieces. I love this unit a lot. They should get after the quarterback a lot and certainly make it a bit of a nightmare early on for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, the flexibility off the edge, the size on the interior. This is just a ridiculous deep line for Florida State. And then if you want to be better against the run, just look at these linebackers. Tatum Bethune, a former UCF transfer, instinctive inside backer, gets that downhill and fills run lanes very quickly. Isn't the most athletic guy or physical player, but he certainly has, again, those instincts that really are beneficial for them. Kalen DeLoach next to him, good toughness, some good speed that allows him to shoot gaps. And then DJ Lundy, a hard hitter. So in terms of front seven prowess, I think Florida State certainly has it to bring the boom this year. I don't want to be disappointed, especially here on this, Sunday night against the Tigers, who I think they certainly have a good matchup against this offensive line.
I think this is a unit that has some nice pieces. They're a little weak, but they have some nice redeeming factors. Tatum Bethune is a good player. Kalen DeLoach is a nice player as well. DJ Lundy has some nice. Omar Grant is a good player in some parts. DeMarco Ward's a true freshman stepping in that could be involved. I think they do need to improve a little bit here. It's a bit of a weakest part of this defense, but this is a unit that could be good against this LSU offense.
You look at the secondary, 56% opponent completion rating allowed last season, 4th nationally against the pass. And they even get better with Fentrell Cypress coming over from Virginia. He was an elite coverage player for the Cavs last season. Good length, nice pure athleticism, like his IQ. Bernardo Green really proved to be an elite run defender. Great tackler. He's not afraid to get his nose dirty, showcase some good physicality as well. Greedy Vance occupied the nickel. He ended up leading the team with 3 INTs. The safety group, as much love we've given Florida State this year, no one seems to be talking about the safety group. I think they're a little bit below average. Shaheem Brown, Akeem Dent, he's a redshirt senior, redshirt sophomore in Brown. And then behind them, not much experience either. They're trying to figure things out as safety. How much freedom do you think they'll have in this game, Nick? Because you certainly don't want to have these guys be put in a position to get exposed vertically, because I definitely think that the safety group is certainly one liability on this football team.
The safety group does have some worries for me. Fentrell Cypress is a great ad. I like him a lot. Greedy Vance is a good, hard-hitting player. Shane Brown's pretty good at free safety. A nice experience with him. Akeem Dent is another good player. I do worry about this. I think they can get beat by guys like Malik Neighbors, but I think they'll be able to contain it. They need to keep these guys in front of them, just make sure they prevent big plays. A bit of a concern for me, but overall, I think this defense is talented, and they should be good throughout the season.
We're going to have the tail of the tape, these team comparisons. This is very tough, Nick, because you look at the quarterback position, I think they're quite even because you have 2 very similar players in terms of what they want to do and in terms of skill set and versatility. So I think that you're going to call that even there quarterback. I think the running back room is just much deeper for LSU. They got 5 or 6 guys they can get involved. The run game for Florida State, I'd say, is much better. But if we're just doing tail of the tape, running back goes to the Tigers, wide receiver. Good room for the Tigers, but the Noles have an even better one after a big-time offseason. Guys like Keon Coleman coming over, joining Johnny Wilson. Winston Wright's return. I think's great. The offensive line, I think these units were certainly both evenly as disappointing at times last year. I think the Noles probably have a slight edge with some of their portal ads. But, the upside's also there for the Tigers. I think the defensive line, I think these guys were 1st and 2nd nationally on my rankings for defensive line. You got to call it even. Very great units for them there on that side of the ball. Linebacker, it's good for Florida State, but LSU is better with Harold Perkins, who's a complete elite game changer. His sacks, his forced fumbles, what he's able to do as a versatile athlete is just too much to try and, dissuade from. Secondary, I'm going to give it to LSU as well, even though Florida State was 4th nationally. I think their safety group's a little bit more polished, and that's why they're going to get the edge there.
I think this is a fair assessment. I do think the offensive line would go to Florida State for me. I also would barely give the quarterback odd to Florida State. I think that there's just a little more polish for me right now on Jordan Travis. Might be a controversial statement, but I would take that right now. I think the defensive line's dead even. I think the running back room, LSU gets the nod for me. Wide receiver, Florida State, and then linebacking core, obviously, very big advantage there for LSU. DB is a little bit closer, but I think LSU certainly gets the advantage there as well.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, Florida State, their corners are a little bit better. So, just tough to compare these teams at the end of the day, though. Final thoughts on the prediction, for LSU, the biggest key is going to be keying in on Jordan Travis. Don't let his legs burn you in any capacity. For Florida State, don't let that Tiger defensive line overpower your interior. And I think creating long downs and distances for Jared Verse to eat is going to be something that's big. Going against Ernest Jones really struggled last year. I think the biggest key for Florida State, though, overall, and why they're going to win this game is just, again, the versatility on the defensive line is going to be too much for this Tiger offensive front to try and win over. It's really hard, though, Nick, because both of these teams have sluggish-like offensive lines going against elite defensive fronts. Both have dual-threat quarterbacks. This is just the hardest game of the year to predict. I'm going to go Florida State, though. They were able to get the job done in New Orleans last year. This is basically going to be a home game for them this season. I don't know why they're underdogs. I think they're going to cover outright. The Noles will start the season 1-0 on Labor Day weekend.
This is a very tough matchup to predict. This is the game of the week, one of the best games on the slate for college football this season. The matchup last year had so many fireworks, and now the teams get both better through the portal and have higher expectations. Brian Kelly has really taken over LSU and stepped up and built a program that won the West last year. Mike Norvell fended off the haters and built himself into a successful program so far. There were calls about him getting fired. He's not getting fired anytime soon. Florida State's a legit national title contender, and LSU's a legit national title contender as well. These two battle it out on a neutral site, favoring Florida State. I'm taking Florida State as well. I think they win here by 6 points. It's going to be a close game. I think both these teams are very talented, just incredible teams top to bottom. This game is so hard to pick. It could really go either way, but I think Florida State gets the job done here. I'm very excited for this game. I'm going to be glued to my TV for this one. A great game on Sunday night to kick off college football. Should be a fireworks, a great extravaganza. I'm super excited for it.
Great rosters from both of these teams. It's really going to be hard to end up going with a prediction on this game before to stay at the end of the day is what's going to be the nod for us. It's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, I appreciate you joining me. Tough one today.
Super excited for this one. Cannot wait. So excited. Going to be an incredible matchup.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.